saved into. Next thing we want to do is get rid of this gentleman. So if we click on his picture, you'll see a blue box appears around it, and I can press the delete key on my keyboard and it disappears. Once I've made a change, you can see it says save up here. I don't need to save at the moment, but at some point I need to hit that save button. So I'm going to do it now. And it is saved. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. This line is going to create, these lines that I'm about to draw are going to create the base of my 3D block. So I go to my pencil tool, which is over here, and I want to go to the line tool. If I come down to the center point here, see how that little cross appears and it says origin. I need it to say origin when I click, and I click and release. It's one click without moving the mouse. I can then move my pencil around and without holding the button, and my line moves with my pencil. I want to move my pencil over to that red line, and then I want to type 50 on the keyboard. When I type 50 on the keyboard, you'll see down in that length, in the bottom right hand corner where it says length, 50 will just appear there. You don't need to click there, you just need to type on your keyboard 50 and press the enter key, and what's happened is I've drawn a line 50 millimeters long. But that line is really tiny, it's right in here. So what I can do is use the mouse wheel to scroll in. It will start zooming in as I scroll with the scroll wheel to that line that I just drew. It's still the same length, I'm just zooming in on it so I can see it. Now I'm going to move my pencil around until that line turns green. Once that line is green, I can type 40 and press enter. Now what I've done is I've starting to draw two lines of my base. Now I'm going to move that line around again, heading back towards that green line, but I want to move my pencil so that the line I'm drawing turns red. And I'm going to type 50 once again. So this line here is the same length as this line over here. Now what I want to do is I want to come back to the origin point. It should actually say end point. And I'll click. And now what I've done is I've created a rectangle. I can press and hold the scroll wheel on my mouse. If I press and hold and I move it, see how it changes the tool to this rotation tool. So I can orbit tool. So I can orbit around, zoom out a little bit, zoom in a bit, press that scroll wheel again, and orbit around. I want to orbit around, so I'm looking at something like this. So that's about 45 degrees. Blue straight up and down, green's out to the one side, red's out to the other. And I don't need my line tool anymore. What I want is my tape measure tool. I'll click on my tape measure tool, and I've got lots of options, and I want that top one, tape measure. I come to this corner and I click and I move along that line, and I want to make sure my tape measure is on that line, and then I'm going to type the number 10. I'm not going to click anywhere, I'm just going to type number 10 and press enter, and it creates a guide point for me there. I'm going to come down to this point, and I'm going to do the same down this end. Now I don't actually need this guide point, but it'll help me check my work. So I'm going to go along this line, I'm going to type the number 10, press enter, and I've created another guide point there. That's 10 millimeters in, and that one there is 10 millimeters in from this side. I'm then going to go back to my line tool, and from that guide point, and I need it to say guide point before I click, and then I'll click and release. Then I move my mouse, and I want to move my mouse around until that line turns red, and I'm going to type 20 and press enter. I'm then going to move my line tool over this way, making sure that that line turns green, and I'm going to press 20 and enter. And then going to go back. Now I can go back to that guide point, to where it says guide point, and click on that, or I can just move my pencil around until it's red and type 20 and enter. Oopsie. I did something wrong, so I'm going to go Alt backspace to undo what I did. Go back from here. I'm going to come across, type 20, press enter. Then I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to type 20 and press enter. Doesn't want to work. There we go. Now, for some reason it didn't want to take that number to start with, but now it's worked. Now what I need to do is get rid of this section of line. In order to get rid of that little section of line, I go to the rubber tool or eraser, and I just click and drag my eraser across that line. The line disappears and this turns back to the background color, and now I can see my base of my 3D block.